Hello and welcome to the Michael Clark Show podcast, where every Wednesday I'll bring you an interview with a different special guest. Many will be from the world of sport. All of them have a story worth sharing. In a time when doom and gloom is all too easy to find, this is a place where we'll be promoting the positive. So I hope you'll keep me company each week as I explore where our guests get their motivation and inspiration from to succeed. Welcome back to the latest edition of the podcast, and we have another stellar guest, the League Two Manager of the Year, Cheltenham Town boss Michael Duff, and of course the Northern Ireland international debut. Michael, good to be talking to you.
How are you, mate?
I'm doing very well. I imagine you're in great form too. What an amazing campaign, and after all the heartache of last year and everything you had to go through, probably a long overdue moment.
I think it almost felt like a 2-year promotion. Because of what happened with the season being curtailed the season before. We just won 6 in 6 and we missed out by 0 point something of a point. And we truly believe that with the run that we were on, we would have got into the top 3. And then to win the away leg of the playoffs 2-0, then to get beat 3-0, completely just the collapse. Didn't see it coming, didn't feel it coming. So to get over the disappointment of that, to come back and win the league was really, really pleasing.
And we know just how competitive that league is, and Cheltenham Town, whose history you know far better than I do, because you know you're a legend as a player there, let alone what you've just achieved as a manager, getting them back up to League One after such a long wait and so many different promotions and all the perils. But How did you find this season? Was that belief there from the off that you could do this, or have you surprised yourself?
I think we surprised ourselves. When I walked into the job, did I think you could get the club promoted? Honest answer would be no. Just the economics of it, the size of the club, attendances, all those sorts of things. But I thought for myself, can you go in? Can you be seen to be doing things right? Can you develop a couple of players and almost get your chance higher up that way? But obviously finishing 4th last year, or the season before, then you start thinking, well, if we can add to this, we did think an advantage would be that we kept a lot of that team that lost that playoff game 3-0. I think 8 of that starting 11 were still at the club for this season just gone. So we thought, well, we've got foundations there. We've got the core of a good team. We just need to add 1 or 2. So the 1 or 2, we selected 3 players. We've signed a few more, but the 3 senior players had all been promoted out of the league. It's one thing that we felt we lacked, that experience to get yourself over the line at the key moments. And then as the season panned out, because it was so condensed, there was no time for training. So it was game recover. But because we'd done so much work with this group the season before, a lot of your tactical shape and your patterns and defensive shapes, they were already embedded. And we think, looking back now, reflected over the last season, we think that definitely helped us going into this season.
What has it been like to try and manage in this year? Because you're relatively new in the managerial journey yourself. It's only been a couple of years, and throw in a pandemic. How do you cope with that?
Well, they don't teach you on the coaching courses. I know that. I'm sure they. I actually said that I'd be prepared to go in and do something with Nigel Best at the IFA to do, trying to plan a playoff campaign in a pandemic. No, it's been bizarre. I'm 2.5 years in, and with that, we've had a relegation battle, a glorious failure in a playoff campaign. We've managed to win a championship and play through a pandemic. So it's been a pretty steep learning curve.
And because of the competitive nature of that league, there's only a couple of points in, 2nd and 3rd place as well. There's such a small margin for error. How do you cope with that pressure as a manager? Because everybody in Cheltenham's looking at you and going, "Oh, please do this."
Well, something we did. That's just part of the job. That's living in football as a player, as a coach, as a manager. It is a high pressure industry. But if you don't like it, don't bother getting involved in football. If you like your weekends, don't bother getting involved in football.
That's very true.
It's 100%. So it's just part of it. One thing we did feel extra responsibility just in terms of, and this would have been the same for every player and club. it's really difficult without the supporters, clearly. But you were fully aware that they were there supporting with the social media, and they're watching on the iFollow and all things like that. So that pressure was difficult, but the pressure for the players was immense, because to have to keep asking them to go again and go again and go again, and players feed off the energy of a crowd. Every player will tell you that, and to ask them to do it week after week after week on pitches that were deteriorated, not just our league, but we are League Two, but everyone was on furlough in the summer, so pitches didn't get ripped up and put down again, and so pitches were really poor this year. So to do all that with no fans in a condensed season, so recovery time, injuries were higher. I think that's statistically proven. It was hard. It was really, really difficult.
But you did have a lucky gilet, so there's that.
Yeah, it's something I've always worn it since not when I started. I started in a suit, but after 9 games not winning a game, that suit went in the bin. Yeah, we played a game. I think it was Colchester right towards the end of the season. It was a big game in terms of we had to win. They were down the bottom of the league, and it was 0-0, and we were battering them, but we just couldn't score a goal. I think in about the 75th, 78th minute or something like that, it was a gorgeous day. It was cracking the flags. I was still wearing this stupid gilet. Sorry, I wasn't wearing my gilet. So I said to the kit man, "Go and get my gilet. It's in my office." And he just looked at me as if to say, because it was a beautiful day, it was boiling hot. And he ran in, put it on, and lo and behold, 3 minutes we scored. We won the game 1-0. So I put it down to the gilet. It had nothing to do with all the work we put in during the week or the tactical information the players were getting given. It's just wearing a lucky gilet.
That's obviously what it's down to. I mean, obviously, you're saying that tongue firmly in cheek, but are you slightly superstitious?
No, I'm not slightly superstitious. I'm ridiculously superstitious. I'm a pain. I'm an absolute nightmare. And it's people have said to me, "Oh, it's a sign of weakness." It's just, and I know it doesn't have any factor, but I was the same as a player. It was right boot on, right sock on, left sock on, right shin pad, left shin pad, right boot, left boot. I always came out 4 because I was wearing number 4. I would do 3 jumps on this stage of the pitch, and I would always eat the same things. It's probably routine as much as anything. The gilet has been burnt now. It's been laid to rest, so I won't be wearing it next season. So I'm not that superstitious that I have to keep doing it. I can park it up and move on. When
did you first kind of realise you're a superstitious person? Because I'm assuming that isn't just something you've developed in the last few years. You said you did it as a player. Were you doing it like as a child?
No, I think it becomes routine, and it's not. You don't really think of it because you're just doing it. But most footballers have the same routine. So silly little things that people will never understand. Like you end up going for a wee 3 or 4 times before you go out for a game, and you're stood in your aisle next to the same bloke because he's in the same type of routine. And some lads like to sit and listen to the music. Some lads play like game of keepy up in the dressing room. Some lads just sit there. Everyone's got their own individual, and it is routine more than superstition. But no, I'm silly little things like this year. I had a badge that I wore, a respect badge for the FA that I wore for the FA Cup game against Man City because we played well. I wore it for the rest of the season. There was one game I thought I'd lost it, and it was a disaster. I'm running around looking all over the place. So it's a weird thing. I don't think anyone really understands why. I don't understand why I do it, but do I think it has any influence on the game? No, I'm not that mad, but it just makes me feel better.
And do any of your, former teammates or any of your coaching staff now, do they ever play tricks on you for that? Because I'm thinking if we were in a dressing room, I'd be doing my best to just mess that up somehow.
No, the staff aren't that stupid. But I've played with people worse than me. Tom Heaton was a nightmare at Burnley.
Right.
Yeah, he is. He's really, really set in his routine. And if you weren't anywhere near his gloves or you went anywhere near his selected water bottles that were all set out in certain ways, if you went near them, it'd be a fight. He was really bad for it. So when you're preparing for a game, most of the lads they're trying to get themselves in that mental state for a game. So when you're getting that close to the game, people aren't really messing around that much.
No, fair enough. So the superstitions have been around for a while. What about the dance moves? Over 1 million people have viewed that video on Twitter, on your club's Twitter alone.
Yeah, it's Owen Coyle's to blame for that. That started. I think we got promoted in 2009-10, with Coyle. And it was back in the day when the Soccer AM were doing the dance-offs and all things like that. So we had a load of young lads, people like Danny Ings in the dressing room, and they're all doing this body popping and all this sort of crap. And then one day, I just got off because I was quite old at the time, and I brought out this stupid dance, and all the lads fell about the place laughing. And we talk about superstition. It ties in quite nicely because Owen Coyle was the most superstitious man I've ever met. And because we won that game, he made me do it for the full run-in. And it got to a point where it's like, really? It just wasn't fun anymore, but I was having to do it because of him. So then I said, look, if we win at Wembley, because we got to the playoffs and we got promoted through the playoffs at Wembley, so I did it under the stairs. So I did it thinking no one else, I've only ever done it in the dressing room. It wasn't for anyone else's eyes other than the lads. So I did it as you're waiting to get up the stairs at Wembley, and it got caught. Somebody filmed it. I don't know who it was. So then at Burnley, when we had the open top bus, the supporters were all singing "Do the Dance." So I did the dance again. Well, luckily I got promoted 3 times at Burnley. So every time, it never came out at any other point. I can assure you, it doesn't come out on a Saturday night. But the second we got promoted with Dyche the first time, and it was the supporters singing it, "Do the Dance." And then my last season, we won the championship, and it was almost so again we're getting presented the trophy, supporters are doing it again. So, and that was it. And then I never knew anyone knew about this because obviously this was a Burnley thing. And then we were in the women car park with the supporters, and all the lads started singing it. And it's one of those things. It's like, wow, just go for it again. So yeah, it's not something I'm particularly proud of. But if we keep getting promoted, I'll keep dancing. I don't mind that.
I think that's a fair promise as well. People will be happy to see the dance under those circumstances.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Just because you mentioned Owen Coyle, I did a 2-parter with him on this podcast series, so if anyone hasn't heard those, please do go back and check them out. But what a thoroughly lovely man who just loves his football. What was he like to play under?
Yeah, he was probably the best motivator I've played with, under, sorry, not with. Just in terms, he made everyone feel 10 foot tall. You look at like, without being disrespectful, I've played with managers who were better technically and tactically, and their sessions were better. But every time you watch, a really good example, we played, so that season we got promoted, we also got to the semi-final of the League Cup, where we took Tottenham to extra time. Weirdly, the away goal rule doesn't count for some reason until the end of extra time. But with that one game alone, we lost the first leg 4-1 away to a Premier League club, a big Premier League club. We were in the Championship. You're thinking, you're 3 goals down. We won 3-0, and he gave us genuine belief that we had a chance. The Chelsea game was in that cup run. We played Chelsea. I think we beat Fulham in the Premier League that year, Arsenal in the Premier League that Chelsea. We went to Chelsea Stamford Bridge, and it wasn't the League Cup where they put the bomb squad out. The big names were all out. Drogba, Makelele, they were all playing. And we did the analysis before the game, and his strengths and weaknesses and all that. They put their strengths up, and then the analysts put the weaknesses up. And within about 5 seconds, he went, turn it off, lads. He went, they ain't got any weaknesses. Just go and have a go. What's the worst we're going to do? We're going to get beat. No one's. But he was like that all the time. He was so infectious. Obviously, he was still able to train at that time, so he joined in training every day. And you could tell he absolutely loved football. He loved the lads going out. He loved the lads getting together. He doesn't drink, Coyle, but we would go out on a night out, and he loved seeing all the lads together and bringing them together. And yeah, in terms of making you think you can do anything, he was definitely that.
Those experiences must be, now looking back on them, really invaluable for you as a manager, seeing a good influence there, but knowing what it's like as an underdog, which you're going to be in League One.
Yeah, well, we were in League Two, to be honest.
That's fair.
So, but it is what it is. With my experiences at Burnley, what they're doing now, they're 5 or 6 years in the Premier League. I mean, I think they spent £1 million last year, which is unheard of. I mean, there was teams in League One spending more money than that. But you just got to accept what you are. don't moan about it. Don't cry. So you won't be hearing us next year going, well, our budget's this and we only get 2,000 and we can't attract the best players, because they're the facts. It is what it is. No one's interested. So you can keep wasting all that energy moaning and almost sucking the life out of the place, or you can go, right, well, that's where we're at. This is what we're going to try and achieve. Can we do it? Is it going to be difficult? 100%. Is it likely we'll come down? Probably. But that's as long as we accept that and it's there, just crack on and be positive and see what we can do. And, you know, and things like Coyle did and uses are things and I will use, because it shows you the strength of the dressing room. Because in terms of like set plays and patterns, we didn't do a lot of that. Mm-hmm. But he had an experienced dressing room, and he 100% got the best out of them. Because we were, you know, I still look back now and go, how he got that team in the Premier League, I'll never know. But there's different ways of doing it.
There certainly is. And football is a funny game, because as you know, as well as anybody, everyone has an opinion on it, but the opinions soon change when you're successful. All of a sudden, everyone's your mate, and you know, there's no more, or there's less criticism. There's always criticism, but maybe it quietens a bit for a while.
Yeah, well, I've been around football long enough to know that, you know, you're up here 1 minute and you're down, you know. Everyone thinks we're brilliant at the minute. When the supporters get let back in next year, we'll probably be getting beat most weeks and getting booed. But that's what it is. As long as we stay true to ourselves, knowing that we're working just as hard. You know, I'm a big one for humility. Even when we win, our lads will never whoop it up in the dressing room. Sometimes teams will beat you and they'll hear them banging on the door and celebrating like they've won the World Cup. And I'll never, ever let our lads do that, because it just winds them up. Like, so you've won 3 points, well done, shake hands and crack on. Because that's all it is. It doesn't mean any more or any less. So I'm quite big on that. And that will be needed going into next year. Mm-hmm. And the players will get told that when we arrive for pre-season. It's like, listen, you can't be good when it's good and not when it's not. You know, so quite often if you look in a dressing room, when you win a game and you've won 4 or 5 games on the spin, and you look around the dressing room and you'll see everyone there. All the lads that were in the squad, all the injured lads, the physios, the staff, they're all in the dressing room because it's such a good feeling. When you've lost 4 or 5 games on the trot, if you ever look around the dressing room then, they're the people you want to see. But quite often those people aren't there because they're running for cover. So that's when you sort of learn about a group sometimes, and you learn about, well, he's good when he's good, but he's not when he's not. So and it'll be interesting this year because we will go on runs of losing games. Mm-hmm. Because that's just the nature of the league that we're in. But as long as we can stick together like we did last year, but it was easy last year because we kept winning. Mm-hmm. I didn't really have players knocking on the door because we never lost back to back. So whenever we did lose, we bounced back really well. So players can't really come and knock on the door then. Well, this year we might lose 4 or 5, and they'll, you know, you don't want a big long line of them going, well, I should be this, I should be that, I should be that. Well, you weren't saying that last year. So there needs to be that sort of honesty within it as well.
And, you know, looking at things, I saw an interview you did pretty much, I think, right after you'd won the league, or soon after anyway, and you were saying you really wanted the players to go and celebrate and enjoy. Everyone's getting a medal, regardless if they played 1 minute or every minute, and to savour it because you can't keep that exact group together next season. Are you planning much change, or what can you say at the moment?
Well, I was a big one for that. I made sure everyone did get a medal, because there's no good me saying everyone's going to be needed, everyone's important, and then you get to the end of the season and go, right, well, you 16 are getting a medal and you 10 aren't. Mm-hmm. They've all had a part to play, whether they're in the team or not. So I'm a big believer that it's not about me. It's not about the only important people at any one time in the football club are the 11 players on the pitch on a Saturday at 3 o'clock. Everyone else is irrelevant. That's the most important thing. So the lads that aren't in the team have a role to play in terms of supporting them, not sucking the life out of the place. You know, mood hoovers it's all about me, because ultimately they've all got a medal now. So they've all got a winner's medal, and I'll take that away from them forever. So, and I'm a firm believer in that. We've managed to keep most of the group together. Obviously, I think 4 or 5 left, and we'll need to strengthen clearly because we've gone up a league. So that's what we're in the process of trying to do now, and that's the difficult part of it, because You have a couple of days where there's real celebration. Where we got promoted on the Tuesday night and we won the league on the following Saturday. So it was like a week of proper celebrations. But then 2 days later, it's sorry, I can't offer you a contract. Or sometimes it's we want to offer you a contract, but it's this.
Yeah.
And the player's like, well, hold on a second. We've just been promoted. I'm expected to double my money. It's like, well, we're in the middle of a pandemic at the minute. So if you don't want to sign it, don't sign it. Thanks very much. So it's, and they're really awkward conversations to have after coming off such an emotional high with these people.
How hard is that to do? Because there's that, I guess there's an emotional attachment because all of those players have helped you achieve this amazing thing. But as you say, you're in party mode, but in the back of your head, you're thinking, well, you might not be staying and you don't know yet.
Oh no, I'm not thinking that because that's like the business side of it.
Okay.
When you're celebrating, that's the emotional side of it. So you're in a. I've just got a manager ringing me now. I've had 6 phone calls since I started this. Yeah, that's genuine emotional investment. So you're having a party, you're having a drink with them, and you're having because just because you're the best player, it doesn't mean I think you're the best person, and it doesn't mean I'm the closest to you because you're the best player. Mm-hmm. You get different attachments, but ultimately it is a business, and you have to make really, really tough decisions. And there was a couple of them this year where it's like you're sitting around with the staff and we're knocking it around, and you're thinking, your heart's saying one thing, but your head's going, no, we need to move on because we've gone up a league, and you can hold on too long sometimes, mm-hmm. and that's part. And obviously we'll be judged on results. So that person goes on and kicks on, and we get relegated. Then you've made the wrong decision.
It's just interesting hearing how you sort of go about it. But certainly, if you look at your playing career, you weren't a mercenary. Was it 26 years between 2 clubs, which very few people are able to do. That in itself is a sign of what a loyal player you were. So as a manager, I know it isn't, being unloyal, but it's a different type of challenge.
Yeah, I think it was probably more to do with no one else wanted me than me being loyal. It was no one. It's just I just kept hanging on as long as I could at the 2 clubs. It's part of football is normally nomadic. I've been really, really lucky. I've had 2 clubs, obviously Cheltenham, Burnley, and then back at Cheltenham. So I'm really lucky in terms of that side of it. I can't remember what the original part of the question was now.
No, it's just, looking at that sort of aspect of your character, because as a player, you were very loyal to clubs, but as a manager, you can't just be blindly loyal to players. You have to have that, I guess, a bit of ruthlessness.
Well, yeah, it's a ruthless business because ultimately, if that 11 that aren't winning on a Saturday, I'll be the one that's gone. So I have to make those decisions for not only for the club's benefit, but for selfish reasons. I'm no different to the players. So if whatever the 11 players on the pitch aren't performing, it reflects on me as well. It's and I tell this to the players. It's not about me. It's not about them. It's if the group isn't winning, none of us are winning. None of us are getting bonuses. None of us are getting further up the league. I've got a chance of getting sacked, but it's not about me either. So it's trying to get them to recognise that. So yeah, that's the business decision, and recruitment is key. Everyone will tell you you could be the best manager in the world, but if you haven't got the tools to do it, you've got no chance. So it's something we do look at, and that's probably why it is so difficult, is because we do look at good characters. That's what we are, because we can't pay the most money. We couldn't do that in the last league. We definitely won't be doing that in this league. But our strength of our group was in the strength of the group. We won the league, and the top goal scorer had 9 goals. That's not me dissing the centre forwards, yeah. But it was a real collective effort. We didn't have one standout. We had lots of standout players, but we didn't have a goal scorer who scored 30 goals. So when you're having to release these people, because we're trying to recruit good people, it probably makes it a little bit more difficult.
How much help do you get at League Two? What's the infrastructure like in Cheltenham in terms of you want to identify the best players? Do you have many scouts to go out and help you? Do you have 1 or 2? What does it look like for anybody that maybe just is aware of the Premier League and doesn't know what life outside the bubble is? No,
it's difficult. We've got a director of football who probably doubles up as a head of recruitment. Mm-hmm. He's got 2 or 3 lads that work sort of part-time for him. Obviously, he's at games all the time. The staff try to get out to as many games as you can, but this year was impossible because everyone was playing on Saturday, Tuesday. So there was no there was no other fixtures to go to, where sometimes you'll have a free midweek so you can get to a Tuesday night game or a Sunday or something like that. And then you're relying on, so they're the ones that identify. They know what I want in terms of when we have recruitment meetings. It might be, right, we need a goalkeeper. So then they identify goalkeepers, knowing the traits that I want, and then as a staff we'll sit through, and then obviously start digging out contacts. I'd never sign a player off someone's word, but the character references that you're looking for, and then ultimately you watch as many games as you can. You've got to take the plunge. It isn't as detailed as Premier League level, clearly, because we don't have the resources. You know, I know at Premier League level now, they go and find out if someone's going on holiday, and they go and stick someone in the same hotel as them for 2 weeks, even though they don't know, just to watch them what they're like.
Seriously?
They go into that detail now. It's
like espionage.
Yeah. Well, basically, yeah. But if that player he thinks he's at ease, you're going to see his true character. So is he? I don't know what he's doing. Is he around the pool giving it the big un, or is he just chilling out with his wife and family? And you get a real insight. No, they're investing millions and millions of, hundreds of millions of pounds when you're putting their wages on top of these salaries, on top of the transfer fees. So you'd be foolish not to. We can't drill down into that sort of detail. We do the best is what we think we can.
Because sometimes supporters hear clubs talk about, we want to sign a certain type of player and it's important to fit our ethos and all this, and they maybe don't realise the level of detail that goes into that. Then they really do care. Yeah,
look, every pound's a prisoner. So if you're spending money on the wrong person or the wrong player, that's going to affect your budget. It's going to affect the team because that could be put somewhere else. So everyone tries, no one tries to sign a bad player. Sometimes things just don't work out.
Sure.
For bizarre reasons. You look at Fernando Torres, the best centre forward in the world, went to Chelsea for 50 million quid and couldn't hit a barn dud. He looked like his twin brother.
Mm-hmm.
And no one can explain why that is because he was the same footballer. So sometimes it just doesn't fit. But if you can get 6 or 7 out of 10 of your signings in the positive side, then I think you're ahead of the curve.
Yeah. The game against Man City is worth talking about because, let's be honest, everybody looking at that, and maybe yourself privately, was thinking, this could be a really long day at the office. And we're watching that game, we're going, okay, they're 1-0, Alfie May scored. Can they hang on? And then a few decent substitutes to fire on, in fairness, Michael.
Yeah, I think under the 50 million quid's worth, I think it was. The 3 subs came to. No, it was, you're absolutely right. There was a real disappointment that, the FA Cup buzz, that would have hit the town. It sort of did, but it wasn't the same. They've been queuing around the blocks as soon as the tickets came out. But the players had that anxiety because they don't want to, you're in the middle of a pandemic where you're not allowed out on a Saturday night. It's on BBC at 5:30. So there's nothing else to do but watch it. So the players knew that. And they also know how good Man City are. And they've made a lot better teams than us look very, very stupid. Mm-hmm. And they were respectful with the team that they picked as well. There was a couple of young ones in, but a lot of the big boys were in there. People like Foden and, Christ, if you go through their team, it'd be worth hundreds and hundreds.
You pick them all out, yeah.
Yeah, well, the front three, I think the front three were Ramirez. Is it Ramirez? What's the Algerian boy? I forgot his name now. Left foot.
Mahrez.
Mahrez, Foden and Jesus were the front three. So it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But even in the warm-up, I'm looking at them in the warm-up and I turn around, hand on heart, I turn around to my coach, first team coach, and I'm like, oh my God. Because they couldn't pass the ball in the warm-up. They were literally like rabbits in the headlights. And you're thinking, that's when it hits home then. Because I'm no different to the players. I'm thinking, I don't want to get beat 10-0 in front of a national audience here. And I'm watching the warm-up and I'm thinking, oh, this could be a long night because, they're all looking over to the other thing. They couldn't pass the ball. It was bouncing off them and we're like, oh. And then they had a chance after about 8 seconds. But once that didn't go in, we settled and actually gave a really good account of ourselves. It wasn't a case of the goalkeeper didn't keep us in the game. We had our own chances. We scored from a long throw. But ultimately, we ran out of legs. And weirdly, it was actually the weakest we were all season in terms of numbers. I think we had 2 goalies on the bench. we put a lad on who'd been out for 6 months. That was his first game. Another lad who never made a league appearance all season came off the bench, and I think 148 million their 3 subs were. I think so. That ultimately it made the difference. But to get to 81, 82 minutes, and it probably helped us for the rest of the season as well, because that gave the lads unbelievable belief that we've just taken the best team in the world here all the way. And they knew they'd been in a game as well. You could tell the way they celebrate, and even they scored with the last kick of the game, which was my fault, because we had about 5 up front at that point. But the 2 goals that really won it for them, they could have quite easily been given offside, because they were like, you look at the VAR and you can't tell the difference between the 2 lads. So they could have quite easily gone the other way. And even when they scored the first and the second, normally Man City against Cheltenham, it's like a pre-season celebration where you'd expect them just to high five and walk back to the halfway line, but they were properly celebrating. So that was the most pleasing thing, that they knew they'd been in a game.
What was it like just being opposite Guardiola? Because, I mean, what an incredible manager. And you probably didn't think at this stage in your career you're going to be looking across the technical area and eyeballing someone like him.
Yeah, I was the same as the players in terms of, luckily I had it. When I played for Northern Ireland, sometimes you're walking on a pitch, and I was lucky enough to play in the Spain again. Mm-hmm. And that Spanish team went on to dominate the world for the next 6 or 7 years. And you're thinking, how hell am I on the same pitch as this person? And it's similar with Guardiola. When you take the job at Cheltenham Town, you're not expecting to be going up against him. He was first class. Obviously, it's a lot easier when they've won. But he gave me 15, 20 minutes of his time afterwards, which he didn't have to do. And he was really open, and it was just bits of gold dust that I thought, well, I'm not going to pass this opportunity up. I'm going to pester him and I'll see if I can get 15 minutes with him, because when am I going to get that opportunity again? I might never get that opportunity. So, and he was really accommodating and really open with me as well.
And what was that? Was that over a bottle of wine? Was it nice and fancy in an office, or what was it?
Yeah, no, it was outside, because it was obviously in the middle of January.
Oh, yeah.
So we literally, it wasn't over a bottle of wine. I gave him a bottle of wine. I can assure you, it was the most expensive bottle of red wine I've ever bought. He said he knew it, whether he did or not, but he offered to open it. I said, look, this is just my in. Do you take the bottle, right? Anyway, and I picked his brains for 15 minutes. But no, he was really good, and I'm always a little bit gutted because they normally have the LMA awards, and he won the Premier League LMA Manager of the Year, and I won the League 2. And I might have been able to get at him again for another 10, 15 minutes, because he probably wouldn't have remembered me from the FA Cup game, but he might have done when he seen me pick my award up. I might have been able to get in there. So I definitely would have done it if I'd had an opportunity as well, unless I'd had about 8 pints, and after that I might have left him alone then.
Well, turns out he's a pretty good singer. I've seen him do some Oasis songs, so he might have been pinting with you.
Yeah. Yeah, he probably knows the lyrics better than I do.
Northern Ireland fans were really chuffed to see you win that award, and it was no surprise. You won the league, so I think a lot of people looking at that going, well, obviously Manager of the Year, but also Grant McCann winning Manager of the Year for his league. Can't think of too many times where Northern Ireland can hog the awards.
It's funny because I'm really close with Grant. I'm actually godparents to his oldest child, so it tells you how close we are. And we the same sort of conversation. There was a real tinge of disappointment. I said, because can you imagine the night out? Because the 2 girls have known each other for 20 years. I obviously played with them at Cheltenham, roomed with him for Northern Ireland for years and years. So we know the family really well. So what a night out that would have been, and having obviously both won our respective leagues, LMA, because the chance of that ever happening again are probably nil. So that everything's got a tinge of disappointment just because of the pandemic. But in the big scheme of things, fantastic. You've done a brilliant job, particularly after last year. It just goes to show you that you don't become a bad manager all of a sudden just because you've been relegated. They took all the goals out of his team when they sold Prosinecki and they sold Jared Bowen. Mm-hmm. I've just said it 10 minutes ago in an interview. If you take the tools away, you can't do your job. So, but supporters don't see it like that. They say, well, the manager's useless, get rid of him. But the club, to be fair to him, stuck by, he's proved again that he's a good manager. So no, I was delighted for him, particularly after the stick that he took in the second half of the season before.
And his managerial career, I guess, is a good example because you're so close. You can talk about things, and I'm sure at points he was feeling low because a lot of people probably looking and thinking, was he getting a fair shake and was he getting a fair review for the ability he has and for what he was doing? He definitely came through a tough patch, and now he's able to prove a few people wrong.
Yeah, and knowing Grant like I do, he's not got that in him he's not doing it to prove people wrong. He doesn't need to say anything. He just needs to enjoy the adulation, knowing that it's going to be tough again next year. But, I've known Grant since he was 18, 19. So you look at his journey, because if I'm being brutally honest, did I ever think Grant would go into coaching or management? No. But he got into it actually really, really early, and he's proved that he's a very, very good manager.
It's funny that, isn't it? Because I guess when we, in the media encounter players at any stage, you sort of earmark a few and think he's a future manager. What was it about Grant in his younger days that you maybe didn't see that in him?
Grant was quite shy. Grant was quite a shy fella. When he was with his close mates, I don't know whether it's a typical Irish thing or what, but when he was with his close mates and his family, he was a life and soul. But if you put him in a room full of different people, he would quite happily go and sit in the back of the room and take a back seat almost. And sometimes, because people go for the obvious one, people go for the captain and the leader and the one that bangs his chest and think, oh, he'll be a good leader, which isn't always the case. But because Grant was such a good footballer, technical, and he relied on that, he didn't need to bang his chest because his football ability spoke itself. But people just assume that, oh, well, he's not a leader then. You can be a leader in so many different ways. You look at Gareth Southgate at the minute with England. There was him and Tony Adams, I think it's proven that he's the England manager. So there's many ways of leading without the old Terry Butcher or bang the drum, headbutting the walls before you going out to fire people up, because the game's changed. People have changed as well, and he's proved that he can engage with people, and he's one thing he's always been decisive. So he would make his mind up pretty quickly and stick to it, and that sort of decision making, that's a form of leadership, and he's obviously done that well, taken into his managerial career.
Yeah, that's a very good point you make, actually. What about you? When did you figure out or even get the first sort of hint in your mind that maybe one day I could get into management? Was it something you'd always considered, or what was that moment for you?
I hadn't always considered it. My moment was doing my knee. So, it took me a long time to establish myself in the Northern Ireland team, and then I had about 18 months where I played every game, and then unfortunately I pretty much did everything in my knee. Cruciate, lateral ligament, hamstring tendon, pulled them all off the bone. And I got told it was a career-ending injury, but I think I'd signed my deal in the August, so I'd pretty much 3 years left on my contract, and it was, well, what am I going to do? I'm 29, I've got no qualifications. The only thing I know is football, so that got me on the coaching path. Fortunately for me, I managed to play till I was 38, so it didn't finish me. So I managed to get my pro licence whilst I was still playing. But because I'd already gone on that journey, towards the end of my playing career, probably from about 33, I started looking at the game differently then, because I started analysing the manager. Started analysing sessions, how he talks, how he presents. This is with Sean Dyche. And just looking at the game differently, because knowing that at that moment then I knew that's what I wanted to get into. Luckily, I managed to get to 38. Like I said, got my pro licence whilst I was still playing. So I was really lucky that I've had a natural sort of progression into my new career, because it's something a lot of footballers struggle with. But yeah, that was the moment when I'd done my knee, sitting in a hospital thinking, I'm knackered here, what am I going to do?
That must be a terrifying moment, because I imagine football's all you've known, you've loved it, you've been successful up until that point, you're doing well internationally. Bang, what do you do now?
Well, it is scary. That's one thing. That's one of the reasons why I got to 38, because I could have actually played on, but circumstances dictated that it was either move on from Burnley or take the job. I'll stay where I am. But you take it for granted. Whether a lot of people won't understand this because they're supporters and they love their football, but it becomes a job. People don't realise sometimes. Sometimes it's hard work. It's, I've got to go in again. I've got to eat this. I've got to do this. everyone's going out for a wedding at the weekend. I can't go. My wife must have been to 25 weddings that I've not been there. You know, the sacrifices that you have to give. And people go, wow, you should give your right arm. You do. And you do appreciate it. But sometimes it turns into a job. And you take it for granted. And you cut corners sometimes. But from that moment on, I never did. Because it nearly got taken away from me. So that's probably why I got to 38. And I was lucky with other injuries and things like that, obviously. But that's why, because I never cut a corner. I ate clean all the time. Yes, I'd have a beer when I could have a beer, but I was prepared to. If we had the game on a Tuesday, right, I'm not having a drink. I was in the gym every morning because it nearly got snatched away from me. And sometimes people will have gone through, their career will have finished. They've got to maybe 30, 31, and then they get told they're finished by somebody else. Mm-hmm. And then they reflect and go, I wish I'd have done that. Well, that sort of happened midway through my career. The Northern Ireland thing, I never got back in, really. But you know, I've got no qualms with that. People like Gareth McCauley went ahead of me, and I think it's fair to say Big G went on to do quite well for him. So it's, there's no qualms with that.
No, it's 5 years today from that Kings of Leon match and that goal against Ukraine, actually. So a fitting time to bring him up, because obviously it's a very special memory for Northern Ireland fans. You were born in Belfast, but what's your connection to Northern Ireland beyond that? Are your parents from here, or what's the link?
Yeah, my mum's, all my mum's side of the family are from the Shore Road. And my dad's from the Republic, actually, believe it or not. So it's, I used to get a lot of stick for being a plastic paddy because of the accent, but I'm actually 100% Irish, believe it or not.
I'm just glad to clear that up because, you know, sometimes people go, oh yeah, but he's got an English accent. So how eligible is he? Did he visit Belfast once? But no. You're okay.
I drank 3 pints of Guinness, so I'm all of a sudden Irish all of a sudden. But no, it is genuine. It's something I was quite proud of. It wasn't a case of I never got picked for anyone else. So I qualified through my 47th cousin, Nan's sister. So I'll go and play for them. It was genuinely proud moment when I played for Northern Ireland.
You have done quite a lot of firsts with Cheltenham, and it's something you're continuing clearly as a manager too, because you scored the goal that got them back into the Football League in '99. But you're also the first Cheltenham player to get an international cap, which I didn't realise until I was preparing to talk to you now. So, when did you find out you were going to be in the Northern Ireland squad to face Poland? Who contacted you, and what was going through your mind?
Well, I was quite late. I think I was 24 when I made my debut, but obviously I'd come through non-league and I was still in League Two. But I played a B international. And we played it at Macclesfield. I can't even remember who we played now. And it was almost just having a look at some of the younger ones, sort of on the fringes. And I think it was Sammy McElroy at the time. But the weird thing was I made my debut against Poland in Cyprus, so even that was random. Northern Ireland against Poland in Cyprus, but yeah, it's. But no, I'd had some brilliant times, some brilliant memories that I'll take away from me forever. Obviously, that standout ones for me are the England game and the Spain game. The Sweden game, playing against Ibrahimovic and beating them. But yeah, it was always brilliant when I brought mates over from England to watch, because obviously Windsor Park at the time was pretty run down. I don't know what did it hold, 18,000 or something like that, but it sounded like 100,000. So a lot of my English mates would come over and they couldn't believe the atmosphere, because I'm telling you, it's different. They're like, there's only 15,000 there. I went, wait till you get there. And they were there at some of those nights, and seeing them afterwards, it was brilliant, and they were brilliant to play in front of as well. It's funny you talk about the 5 years ago, since 2016. I retired in 2016, and it was my 10-year wedding anniversary. So me and the wife were in Miami, celebrated. We dumped the kids, and we had a week in Miami. So I was the only person sitting in the hotel bar watching all the Northern Ireland games on my own. It was brilliant. Love that. What a place to be doing it as well. Now that's nice. Right on South Beach we were. So everyone else is on the beach and I'm in the bar. So it was brilliant to watch. You've your priorities, right? My other half has to suffer with my football love as well. It doesn't matter where in the world we are. We're like, yeah, but the World Cup's on or the Euros are on, so we're going to have to spend some time indoors. Oh no, she's the summer's her football detox. So she's like, she has to put up with football, so what she married into. But she said, in the summer, I don't have to. So you go and do what you want. I'm in the sun. I'm happy.
Just right too. Those two matches that you mentioned in particular, the England game, obviously David Healy, for anyone that needs reminding, scoring that iconic goal. What was that night like? Because you came on as a substitute, Windsor Park. I mean, I thought the place was going to fall down. It was reverberating.
Yeah.
What's going through your mind as a player? Because that atmosphere isn't normal, I guess. You don't get that every week.
It was, I still remember it quite clearly now. It's because we got towards the end of the game, you're winning 1-0. So Laurie's turning around, he's looking at the bench, and all the centre forwards are popping up going, me, I'll go on. And all the defenders are going, oh no, because as a defender, you can only go on and make a mistake.
Yeah.
So you're fully aware of what's at stake. And I remember he turned around, he shouted my name, I'm thinking, oh no. Because straight away you're thinking, I don't want to be the one to mess this up. Because like you say, the place is bouncing, and on the bench, you know what this means.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, oh, so then you quickly get changed. And I remember him, I said, where am I going on? He went, just go and edit. Literally, just because he was completely caught up in the moment as well. And it's like, well, who am I marking at set plays? Just go and edit. Because obviously that's why I'd been put on, because at this point they were just launching the ball. And I wasn't on for long. I don't know what I was on for 3, 4, 5 minutes or what. But yeah, it was that fear, that anxiety. Like I said about the Man City game, of I don't want to be responsible. If you're in centre forward, you go on, you run around, you might score. You're not going to cost them the game.
Yeah.
But it was that fear of, oh, remember that Michael Duff? Oh yeah, we were about to beat England, and he scored an own goal, or he slipped over. And I'm sure I'm not the only person that's felt that running on in the last few minutes of the game. And yeah, it was brilliant when the final whistle blew, because then I'd been part of it. So if I'd have been sat on the bench and not got on, I wouldn't have felt as much of a part of it. But because of all those feelings, I celebrated like I'd scored the winner. I celebrated like I was David Healy, because it was such a big moment.
What was that squad like? That's obviously a really special campaign, and you know Lawrie Sanchez and Jerry Armstrong orchestrating some very special nights. But the players too, you know, are Northern Ireland legends across the pitch. What was it like to be part of that squad? Yeah,
when I first went in that first trip, there were some real big characters in that one. People like Lennon and Magilton and Michael Hughes, and it was quite intimidating to come from a League Two club. Not that they were intimidating, but it was intimidating. And then obviously, as I got a bit older and a bit more established, but again, some really good characters, some good players as well, by the way. Again, you talk about David; he's had a brilliant season this year as well. Another colleague that's doing well in the management game. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's people like I'm thinking of people like Bestie, and we had some good nights out. Everyone knows that after a good result, everyone went and had a beer, and that's the brilliant part of Belfast in terms of you look at the England squad and they literally get tucked away. We used to go and win a game, go out in the city, and people would be buying you a pint and then leave you alone. And I thought it was brilliant. It was to be able to have that interaction without it causing trouble or without it being a pain. Because you can imagine England players going into London after winning a game,
mobbed.
Exactly, it just wouldn't be any fun. But that sort of rapport with the supporters, and like I said, I probably can't name enough of them because I'll end up forgetting somebody. Do you know what I mean? But it's really, really special times.
And then, the Spain game as well. I think a certain Johnny Evans was cutting his teeth at the international stage at that time. And obviously, you don't get too much time in international duty together with players to get an assessment. But could you tell he was going to go on and have the career he had from what you'd seen of him by then?
You knew he was a good player. I think it's difficult at that age to go. He's gone on and have because of the levels that he's got to for the last 15 years now or something like that. It's been incredible. But no, it was. I think, did we get beat 3-0 by somebody on the Saturday? I think it was.
Yeah.
And obviously, I don't think I can't remember now. I don't think me or Johnny played in that. But obviously, Lawrie thought, right, I'm completely ripping it up and starting again. So he threw Johnny in at left back, me in at right back, and I never enjoyed playing right back. And I still look back now. I had a conversation with someone recently, and I look at the Spanish team, and I still have no idea how we beat them. Apart from the fact that we had David Healy. I'm like, Genuinely, no idea how we beat them, but it goes to show you, you've always got a chance.
Oh, you do. And
going back to Johnny, it's he's 6'3", he's quick, he's 2-footed. I think it goes to show you that he's gone into Leicester and they're paying millions and millions, and he's their number one centre half at 30. I don't know what he is now, 32, 33 is he now, Johnny? We actually played Leicester at the start of last pre-season, so it was good to see him. Because I'd obviously not seen him for a long, long time. But no, there was lots of talk about him, and in terms of a character, he hasn't really changed. Obviously, God knows how much money he's worth now, but he's still just the same fella.
Yeah, often fantastic player. David Healy, yes, doing really, really well as a manager. And it's a funny one because obviously everyone in Northern Ireland who was a Northern Ireland fan loved him. And when you become the Linfield manager, well, Glentoran fans don't love you anymore, et cetera, et cetera. And like, that's the nature of the game. But the goals that he scored in that night alone against Spain, real quality. I know Jerry Armstrong still takes a bit of credit for that smart free kick routine, doesn't he?
Well, yeah, Jerry takes the credit for quite a lot. He's well, I think did he equal somebody's record for the qualifying campaign in that one?
I think he beat him.
Yeah, well, there you go. Do you know what I mean? Playing for Northern Ireland. When I started playing for Northern Ireland, I think we went 12 games without scoring a goal. Mm-hmm. So how he never really got a bigger move than what he did. I know he got his move to Fulham with Lawrie, but it's sort of, and I know he obviously came through at United, but how he never got even a bigger move abroad or something like that off the back of that campaign, because it was literally everything he touched turned to gold or goals. But it was, he was, but again, just a good bloke, good fella. There's no edge to him, no arrogance to him. It was just a good bloke.
Yeah, some really special memories, and nice to talk about those. Just a selfish question, really, because you're saying about being shoved at right back and going, "Oh, I hate this." What's that like, at your level? Because I think anybody, whether they play amateur football or whether they just go play seven-a-side or whatever with their mates, knows that feeling of, right, you're playing here and you go, oh, love of God. Like, even professional footballers feel that. That's kind of comforting to me.
Well, I started my career as a right back basically because I wasn't big enough in terms of, shoulders. I was like a rake basically. So I had to. And most young players get their chance on the fringe of a team. So centre forwards normally come on, start as wingers, and centre halves maybe, and even centre midfielders will start as a right midfielder. So you get your chance on the periphery because it's the trust down the middle. But so my first 3 or 4 years at Cheltenham, I played right back. But as soon as I went into centre half, I started getting all the recognition. Getting in Team of the Years and Player of the Year awards and all things like that. And then I went to Burnley, and I had to start at right back again. And it was this, and because I could run fast enough. I was never quick, ever quick, but I could do the job. Whereas you get some centre halves, literally I'm a centre half and a centre half only. So sometimes, for the detriment of me, I had to go and play right back. But I knew myself I could only ever get to a 6 out of 10. A really good game for me at right back, I could get a 6 out of 10. But if I played really well at centre half, I knew I could get to an 8 or a 9. Mm-hmm. But I was that playoff game that I was talking about earlier. That's the last time I ever played right back. So I managed to retire right back at Wembley. Luckily for me.
Not a bad idea.
And then the last 8 or 9 years of my career, I never played right back again. But no, it's you do it for the team. But you just know yourself. Anyone that's seen me play, I wasn't particularly good in the first place. But when you played me in my secondary position, I definitely wasn't very good.
Well, you're putting yourself down a lot. That's obviously not true with the career that you've had. You don't become a Premier League player and go through a long career of winning promotions and being part of successful teams if you're not the good player. If you're not someone the managers trust, because as a manager, if you don't have that faith in the player or you don't see them as one of the stronger players, they're quickly out of the team.
Yeah, no, I got lucky. I played with some good players. Go back to 2012-13, I was playing with Kieran Trippier, a young Kieran Trippier, but he probably put 2 or 3 years on my career because I wouldn't let him go anyway. You're standing here, mate, next to me. But then he'd disappear, but he'd get back next to me. He's 5'8", but I never had to go and worry about him in the air because he's brilliant in the air. him in particular probably added a few years to my career, because I never got done down the sides at that point, because I was getting to an age where I couldn't run at all. So now listen, one thing I did do, I definitely got the best out of my career. Mm-hmm. One thing I've got no regrets in terms of I left a little bit out there, which I know players do, because they're not prepared to do all the right things. I knew where I was, and I had my limitations, which I'm not embarrassed to say. But one thing I did, I had a good mentality and a good attitude, and it just goes to prove how far you can go, because natural ability, I had a little bit, I could head it, and that was about it. But I'm a big believer in it. If you work hard, it pays you back.
Well, talking about Kieran Trippier, I want to talk about a left-back, certain Mr. Victory, because he still claims that goal against Yeovil. I was having a look back at that, and the history books give it to you, that much-fated goal in 99, like 97th minute of the game.
Yeah, it's
crazy.
And I didn't score many goals. But no, listen, Jamie's still convinced he headed it in. It's almost like in local folklore down here, it's a big thing. Luckily I've managed to go on and score a few more goals and play in probably slightly more important games than that, as we talked about. But no, I think players' reactions tell you everything. I've gone up, I've headed it in, I've gone absolutely mental, and Jamie's just stood there and gone. And we've just been promoted in the 97th minute, so if I hadn't headed the ball, I'm pretty certain I wouldn't have reacted like I did. So yeah, there's a long time ago. If he's that desperate for it, I'm sure I can add him into the history books. But I'm quite happy to take it.
I don't know why. I just find it really amusing that this sort of tussle goes on. I had Kevin Doyle on one of the earlier episodes, and him and George Elokobi still have a bit of a row about one of the goals against Man United. And I just think it's fantastic. You know, you can have a long career, but there's still one goal that you and your mate will argue over.
Yeah, it was a goal against Man United, slightly different to a goal against Yeovil in the Nationwide League. At the time, it was important though. But it's like I said, it's sort of gone down locally as who scored that goal. I know I headed the ball, so I'm quite confident in that.
Sean Dyche has been very complimentary about you and your success. You've spoken about playing under him. What's he like as a manager? Some people, and the reason I ask is, some people say, you know, he should be getting touted for bigger jobs. Now, I mean, obviously, nothing against Burnley for that. What Burnley have achieved is tremendous, and Sean Dyche is a huge reason why that is the case. You know, should people be talking about him for, inverted commas, bigger jobs for other opportunities?
Yeah, 100%. The problem with football is a lot of it's smoke and mirrors and perceptions and things like that. So it's because he wears the same suit because he looks uniform, that's what he likes. People brand him as a certain type of football, but he wins every year because he keeps Burnley in the Premier League. So you do what you do with what you've got, with the tools in front of you. So if he went and tried to play, you know, they can't recruit in the Premier League. They only ever recruit Championship players. I think, like I said, they spent £1 million last season and kept him in the league again. So to keep overachieving and overachieving and overachieving, you're doing your job. Your job as a manager is to try and overachieve. Well, he does it but he never gets any plaudits for it now, because it's almost, that's the norm. Oh yeah, but they don't play great football. Well, give them better tools then. Because the job is getting the best out of the players that you've got in front of you. And that's what he does. So how do you know how he's going to play if you give him? And I've quite openly said this a few years ago. He said, people won't believe me. He said, he said, my favourite player, is David Silva at Man City. And people go, well, you can't play in a 4-4-2. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't play him in a 4-4-2 because he's 5'6" and he gets between the lines and he does that. And people, because again, and he doesn't fight it. That's the thing. He doesn't try and fight the perception. You know, people think he's a caveman because he's got a skinhead and a goatee beard and a gravelly voice, and it might have been to his detriment almost at some point. But he's confident and in himself that he knows what he's doing. He doesn't need the plaudits of everyone else, and it might cost him a bigger job at some point, because since he's been there, he's done nothing. He's been nothing but overachieve, and there's been a relegation within that as well. But that doesn't mean you're still not achieving. So to answer your question, should he get an opportunity? 100%. Will he get an opportunity? Probably not, based on he's not a big name in terms of, he's not a Pep Guardiola or an ex-superstar player. So unfortunately, that's the world that we're in. Sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know sometimes.
Yeah, he doesn't seem stylish in some way, as if he can't adapt, which you're saying clearly he can adapt if he was given the chance.
Well, I'm not sure a type of suit and a haircut makes you a better manager, but for some people it does. A good example would be, I don't know him, so I can say it, but you look at someone like Marco Silva. Mm-hmm. Marco Silva came into Hull, got Hull relegated. I'm not saying he got relegated, but was manager when they got relegated and got the Everton job. Mm-hmm. Well, you name one British-based manager that gets a team relegated that's going to get linked with the Everton job. Absolutely impossible. But because he was deemed as stylish. I don't know the bloke. I'm sure he's a very, very good manager. But if that was a British-based manager, it wouldn't happen. But he was seen as the next Mourinho, and because he was stylish and he looked the part, it's like, well, it doesn't make you a good manager. Results on the pitch make you a good manager, and you don't always have to win the league. People often say, "Well, he hasn't won anything." So, well, if you're manager of Burnley, you ain't going to win anything. That doesn't mean you're not winning every week. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I'd like to see Sean Dyche with a fitted wig, though. That'd be fun.
Yeah. Some sort of like the Fonz or something, or slip back. Yeah, but he's a good bloke. He's been really helpful for me. Even the Thursday before the last game of the season, I took my staff up just to have a look around. Obviously, I know what's going on, but he was really open. The staff really open, and he doesn't have to do that. He could quite. But he's one of the first people to text me when we won the league, which tells you again something what he's about. And he's not the only one. People like Steve Cottrell have helped me along the way as well. But yeah, he's the sort of bloke you want to do well, because he's salt of the earth. Talking about some of the Northern Ireland players, he'll go for a pint with you. He'd be a multi-millionaire now. You wouldn't have a clue. Mm-hmm. Apart from some of his gear, it might be expensive and terrible. But it's you could sit and have a pint with him and have a chat, and you wouldn't be. Oh, there'd be no edge to him. Mm-hmm. But he's also working at the highest level, so he knows his stuff.
He does great press conferences. That's all I can say. He just seems like a normal person.
Well, it's almost weird to say that, isn't it? Because people think, oh, footballers are this X, Y, and Z. Yeah. And this preperception, the amount of times that I think I'm an all right bloke, but you go to a wedding or a do of a friend or a family, and you get feedback afterwards to go, oh, he was all right, actually. And I said, well, what were you expecting? You know what I mean? Because I don't know whether they expected Paul Pogba to walk in the door, but by the way, Paul Pogba apparently is a really nice bloke. But a lot of it's perception, a lot of it's agents, a lot of it's media-driven, social media-driven as well. So sometimes what you see isn't what you always get.
So what do you think is the perception of Michael Duff then, bar he has a bit of a dodgy dance move?
That's probably it. Yeah. I need to win a few more games before I can build a perception. I'd like to think, in a few years' time, hopefully you carry on doing well. People see me as honest, hard-working, knows his football. His team can play good football, but don't get obsessed. Don't get wrapped up in philosophies, and it's just win the game. But can you win the game? Because one thing we have done in the last 2 years is we play good football. But ultimately, I'm not stupid enough to. We've won the league last year. I'm not naive enough to think that we can just keep playing the same way. You've got to find a way to survive. Because that's what this industry is. It's about survival, unfortunately, and it can be a grind.
What about the music in the dressing room? Is it a bit of a chore, or are the lads okay? It's bad, is it?
Oh God, it's painful. We have a staff half an hour from about 12:30 to 1 o'clock, because the lads have to be in by 1:30 on a Saturday. Yeah. They normally start dripping in from about 12:30 till whenever. But yeah, we have a staff half an hour. We put all the old songs on, normally 90s sort of bass music. But the stupid thing is, most of them have been remixed into dance songs. I've heard this. Yeah, this was a proper song 30 years ago. As soon as the players walk out for the warm-up, a staff member turns the music off. They're only halfway down the tunnel, and it has to go off because it's terrible.
I just had a suspicion that would be the case. I don't even know what I based that on, but I kind of felt that. So what's your musical preference if you were in charge of the songs that we're playing? What would you be putting on?
Well, like I said, I was based indie music in the 90s.
Yeah.
So, well, not even in the 90s, but guitar-based music, things like Oasis and I can't even think off the top of my head now. You've stumped me. But no, Arctic Monkeys.
Yeah.
Yeah, but all that sort of that bass music. I'm quite like Jerry Cinnamon at the minute. I'm listening to quite a bit of him at the minute. Yeah, so that something with an instrument basically, and not a ridiculous beat that's been auto-tuned and done by some YouTuber or something like that my kids listen to. Because even the kids are just as bad now. I'm quite happy to drive somewhere in a separate car to the wife and 2 kids they they're singing along to they know every word to every song as well, which I don't know how they do that either. But yeah, I'm old-fashioned. I like guitar music and I like watching the TV, whereas my kids are just sat on iPads and they don't turn the TV on anymore because they just watch YouTube. But that's the world we live in, I suppose.
Well, now that I know you're a music critic, I've probably accidentally got you signed up to Cheltenham Factor or some local equivalent.
No. I'm just trying to think. They're the last gigs I went to. I went to Kasabian, I went to Foo Fighters. I think the last 2 gigs I've been to.
Foo Fighters. I saw Foo Fighters in Belfast. They were my last gig before the world kind of shut down. And I'm so glad I went. They were incredible. I take it they were good when you saw them.
I basically got a ticket through an ex-player who had. I used to like the Foo Fighters, but I wouldn't say I'm not a massive gig goer.
Okay.
But I went and I'm like, oh my God, like Dave Grohl, you're thinking, no wonder he gets laryngitis every blooming tour, because they were absolutely probably the best gig I've ever. I've seen Oasis in Manchester, but in terms of, it was probably the best gig I've ever been to, I'd imagine. Yeah, because he was incredible. They talk about X Factor and stage presence. He had the lot.
Oh, so good. Do you know what the heartbreaking thing of that was? My girlfriend did that thing where she you video part of the concert, which I don't video concerts, I just enjoy them. But she was videoing it and she was playing the clip back later on when we were home, and I went, "Oh, I can't sing at all. Can we just lose those?"
Well, that's what you should be, though. That's what does my nutting as well. When people listen, I don't do the social media, but it does my head in when you go to a restaurant and the first thing people do is take the phone out. I was like, eat it. It's nice food. If it's that, it can't be that. It's like, if you haven't, when they're filming a night out, it's like, if you're having a good night, you shouldn't be worrying about showing everyone else. Just enjoy yourselves. But I'm showing my age now. That's why.
No, well, here, I don't know if you got me started or I got you started, but we agree anyway. So that's that's all good.
Totally off pace there.
No, here, well, that's brilliant. The other thing is you're saying big on TV. For a lot of people that didn't have a job in football, they ended up watching a lot of TV. Did you even have time to chill out and watch Netflix in the last season, or because it was so condensed for you guys? How on earth did you unwind?
Well, that's the difficult part of the job. It's trying to find that release. Mine's golf generally. That's the one time the phone goes off. It's going off again now. The phone goes.
If I cost you a player, I'm not taking the blame.
Yeah, but it's actually my head of recruitment as well. So it might be a player. It's probably one thing I haven't done particularly well in the job, is learning when to switch off and finding a bit of time for me. It's probably tell by the weight I put on my face, but it's something I'm keen to try and address this season in terms. I'm just going to give myself an hour a day because a lot of the time, particularly at our level, you can't get out the door because it's Gaffer can and you're trying to help everyone, but there will be an hour a day this season where it'll be like, no, I'm going to go in the gym, or I'm going to just sit and read a book for half an hour or something, just to try and take yourself out of it. Because I am conscious that you can burn yourself out quickly. And like you said earlier, I'm still new to it, so I don't want that to happen. No,
it's just trying to find that time in amongst everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's where I guess having good role models and people you can contact is helpful, just to find out how they've done it. And I imagine through your career, you have those people that now you can pick up the phone and say, look, I'm thinking this, what do you think? Yeah, there's the contacts that you make all the way along, but even on Monday I started an LMA diploma in football management, but again it's been pretty full on for the last 2.5 years, so it's trying to take a step back now and reevaluate what I have done well, what I haven't done well. One of the things I haven't done well is look after myself very well. And then I need to start upskilling again. So it's just trying to learn from other people, meeting different people as well. So it's, that's probably part of the reflection of this season is where do we go from here? And when you say looking after yourself, I mean, are you making yourself unwell that you're working that hard, or what are we talking about?
No, just look in terms of like putting a bit of weight on and eat, because you spend a lot of time in the car because you're travelling up and down to games, so you're eating garage food, so it's sandwiches and crisps and a bottle of pop or something for that, and it soon adds up. So I don't need to lose. I need to lose about half a stone, but I'm in the mindset now. I'm currently isolated at the minute because my oldest tested positive last week, so I did 7.5k in the garden this morning just through sheer boredom, just running up and down the garden. So it's I might as well try and turn it into a positive and kickstart the fitness regime.
Yeah, when life hands you lemons, make lemonade. So fair play. I hope they're okay, by the way. I hope they're not too badly affected by it.
Yeah, probably hear them in the background playing the Xbox. So
I was going to say, sounds like a good game of FIFA or something maybe going on.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, no idea what it is now.
So you don't take part in that?
No. Definitely don't have time for video games now.
No, it's been amazing having a chat with you and sort of getting to know you a bit better and seeing the success you've had so far. I think will inspire a lot of managers because, as you say, it wasn't that long ago you're looking at fighting off relegation and then to go and win the league. That's some turnaround.
Yeah, it is. It's been a good 2.5 years. So it's again, we're going to go back to the first part of it now next season where we're going to be right up against it. But I'm not saying we'll be winning the League One in the next 2 or 3 years by any means. Look at some of the teams in the league, but if you go in there with your eyes wide open, knowing how tough it's going to be, but you don't want any whinging or moaning of poor us, poor that. It's just get on with it, work as hard as you can, and see where it takes you. So
if you keep doing well, maybe in a few years we'll tap you up for the Northern Ireland job.
Well, that's not a bad part of the plan, is it? So it's let's concentrate. Let's concentrate on this year first, before we start looking too far down the line.
Exactly. Well, look, it's been really lovely talking to you, Michael. I appreciate your time, and I'll let you start getting back to all those people that have been trying to reach you in this last while. But thanks so much for coming on to the podcast.
No worries. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Michael Clark Show podcast. You can follow me at mclarkshow on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Check back every Wednesday for a brand new episode, which you can download as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. You can also watch the entire interview via my YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/The Michael Clark Show. And if you like our theme song, it has been kindly provided by the brilliant SX70. Search for SX-70 on Spotify to stream their music. Until next Wednesday, take care. I'll speak to you soon.